schedule falls like it does, this wouldn't feel like a game that would necessarily set you up well for playing Kentucky and what they're going to bring to the floor or whatever. Right? Is there anything that you're carrying in there you feel pretty good about right now?
No, I mean, if we play like we did today, they'll beat us 200. And that's what I told the TV people. I mean, we have to play better than we did today because we're playing on the road and we're playing, one of the best teams in America, and they're playing their best basketball. So we're going to have to play, certainly much better than we did today.
What makes playing in that arena just so difficult?
Well, the fact they have 24,000 people, they're not just there, but willing to roll their sleeves up and fight for their team. That makes a difference. And it also, the fact that they have great talent and a terrific coach, you combine those three, that's a big monster.
Speaking of that, I didn't realize I was talking to Bateman. You guys have been selling out almost every Saturday game you've had here. I was at, what's going on?
If you come more often, you might realize it. But we've had great support from our fans, and we have had many sellouts. We don't, we've had great fans. Our fans were great today. They were terrific the other night versus South Carolina, and then, it was a weekday game. And one of the hard things with the new television package is we're playing games anywhere from noon to 9 p.m., different days of the week. It's hard for people from Atlanta, I know, but even with those circumstances, our attendance has been terrific, and we appreciate that.
What's really tough when you look at Murray and Ulis for Kentucky, just defending and slowing them down?
Well, we haven't obviously seen Murray in person this year, but I saw him in high school, and he really has great hands and the ability to finish plays a lot of ways. So he can really score in a variety of ways. Ulis is a terrific point guard who obviously was a key part of their team last year. So those guys combined to really have a great backcourt. And Alex Poitras is a kid who has the experience up front and provides some leadership up front, and you knew that their team would get better throughout the years. It always does. But that backcourt is terrific, and that's a great place to start.
What's the biggest challenge for the freshmen playing in that environment for the first time?
Listening to the coach. When you have that many people, this is a game where your players have to understand what they're doing, during the game, and be able to make the reads and the calls, because there's oftentimes they can't hear you as a coach, and it's much like playing at Vanderbilt when you're on the baseline. Yeah. You have to have some guys who can make decisions on the fly, because they're not going to be able to hear us, which is that's part of the game.
After the game, players got to meet Devon Gales.
Mm-hmm.
Was the impact of that, do you think, as far as?
I told him at shoot around that he was coming, and I have great respect for Devon. To face what he has had to deal with the spirit in which he's done it. I think he's a great example for everybody. And I think people would line up to have my problems and your problems. They're not lining up to have his. And he's handled it unbelievably well. And I think that for our players to meet him and to share some time with him, I thought was really important for our young people to grow up.
Looking back last year, Yante had to start the game at Rupp against Kentucky because of Marcus's injury. How much did he grow from that game moving forward?
I've forgotten that he started there. I don't know. He's been there before, so that's good. That was last year. We had two really hard-fought games with Kentucky, and they're always hard fought, and I hope this one will be. But we're going to have to play better basketball, and Yanke's going to have to play, certainly well. But he's going to need some help, and it's going to have to be a great team effort.
Looking at Kentucky, it seems like every year they perpetually turn their roster over, but still stay at the top of the conference. What is that challenge like?
I think there's with the one and done rule, there's only a handful of programs who can really operate and live with one and dones. Kentucky is one of the few that's been able to remain at the top. You look at Duke's struggles this year at one time, and they lost a bunch of guys to the NBA. It's hard to keep reloading with one and done players. Kentucky has been able to do it, and that's a credit to John and his staff. And you know, they do have a little bit of experience this year with Porthos and Euless back, and that probably is really welcomed by their coaching staff. But it's what they've done is remarkable.
Would you like to see that one and done rule changed?
Yes.
Why?
I think kids should be allowed to go pro out of high school, and I think that why restrict a kid who is good enough to go, because there really aren't very many who are good enough to go. And then if they go to college, let's do what other sports have done and keep them around for a while. Just imagine last year's team if Contagious was still on. You know, not that he would have stayed all 4 years, but you know, I think that you would see then the elite players not all go to a couple places. They'd have to go other places because people wouldn't have as many scholarships to give out, and it would help the game. But I think it would also help the NBA because, you know, that product is there's a lot of guys who get a cup of coffee in the NBA and barely taste it, and then they're out. So I'd like to see the rule change.
Do you feel it's an opinion shared by your colleagues in the conference or folks you talk to about that?
It's shared by many. The problem is we don't have any control over that rule, and that's really something that the Players Association has to agree to change in the collective bargaining agreement. And unless they're willing to do that, it will not change.
Any progress to that end? I mean, is there any kind of lobby? Is there anybody talking to them?
I think that issue's way down the pecking order, to be honest with you. I do appreciate we've partnered with the NBA in the change in the draft rules this year, and we had a lot of meetings at the Final Four with the NBA people in the room, and we feel like we made a lot of progress. But you know, the ultimate changing of the rule is I think a long way away.
Another time, I was trying to get some sort of read on JJ's quickness. How fast is he from one end of the floor to the other? I mean, I'm sure you time that sort of thing. But,
we do, and I believe he has the fastest time. I'm not sure. Kenny Gaines might have it, but he has. You know, JJ's quickness is I think, an advantage for him. But when you combine his IQ for the game, he recognizes a lot of plays are about to happen before some other people do, so he gets a head start, and that makes him seem a little quicker because he really has a high IQ for the game.
Is there any, it appears that he actually shoots better when he has no time to think about it, like sometimes when he's wide open and standing on the line, but it's like when he realizes when the clock's, you know, to catch and shoot.
I don't know if I'd agree with that. You know, he shoots so many balls. You know, it's you know, he's a very good shooter. You know, and that's one of the things we really liked about him. So he can really shoot with great range, and he has the advantage of being little because he can play underneath people, and that really is an advantage for him sometimes.
You're, I think, one of 9 coaches in college basketball to beat Bill Self at Kansas in his time he's been there. Do you ever think back to that night and think, you know, hey, I did this that night, you know, maybe we can do it again and beat him at Kentucky?
You know, I think we've been proud of our road record. You know, I think we've been proud of our road record. Kentucky's one place we haven't won, though, and hopefully we can give it a run on Tuesday. Thank you, guys.